start with a Flea Flicker to open up the night. And he connects with Galladay.
Sup, everyone? It's Timmy B, and it's time for this week's episode of the Flea Flicker with Joey D and Timmy B. Once again, this is a Timmy B only episode, and it is entirely my fault. Joe was working this morning, and I forgot we were recording in the afternoon, made some plans, but rest assured, I got Joe's pick, so let's hop into week 17. But before that, wanted to make an announcement. Joe and I are going to continue the Flea Flicker in the offseason after the Super Bowl. Our plan is to do one division a week, kind of recap the division, talk about what happened, what went right, what went wrong, and some key things that we're looking for from these teams in the offseason. And we know a lot of our guests are fans of different teams around the NFL, so maybe we'll bring them back on, or a new guest as well to see what they want from their own teams in the offseason for a recap. So be on the lookout for that. And then for the playoffs, we are talking to our guests now. Details haven't been finalized yet, but we are working on something to get all of our guests interacted. So make sure if you want to be involved, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and then comment below. But anyways, let's hop into week 17. The first game we're going to be talking about, or the first game we're picking, will be a throwaway game. We got the Minnesota Vikings at the Detroit Lions. The Vikings are a 6.5-point favorite on the road. The over-under is set at 53.5. Joey D is going with the Vikings in this one. However, I am going right off the bat, going against Joey D. I'm going with the Detroit Lions. I think without Dalvin Cook, it's going to be a mess with Kirk Cousins and that offense. Likewise, on the Lions side, it's always nice to just get that Week 17 win to build that momentum going into next year. We'll see, though. There's a lot of things wrong with the Lions, and I don't know why. I just kind of like the Lions in this game. So I picked the Lions to win. Joey D is going with the Vikings, and we'll see what this offense can do without Dalvin Cook, because Kirk Cousins is going to have to win with his arm. And now next up, we have the New York Jets at the New England Patriots, another throwaway game. Jets have already locked into the number 2 pick, so it doesn't matter, but they are playing some good football. Patriots are a 3-point favorite. The over-under is set at 40. But Joey D and I are both going with the Patriots in this one to win this game. I personally think that Bill Belichick doesn't lose this game. You know, Bill Belichick is that type of coach where this is downright embarrassing if he loses to the Jets in Week 17. And they lost last year at home to the Dolphins in Week 17, which hurt their chance for a first-round bye. It doesn't happen again, no matter if they're eliminated or not. Bill Belichick will not be losing to the Jets in this one. Now moving on to the other AFC East matchup. This one actually is relatively important. We have the Miami Dolphins at the Buffalo Bills. The Bills are a 2.5-point favorite, and the over-under is set at 42. If the Bills win, or with the Steelers loss, they clinch the number 2 seed. If the Dolphins win, they clinch a playoff spot. They can still lose and make the playoffs as well, with a couple of other teams losing. Joey D is going with the Dolphins in this one. I'm going with the Bills. The Bills look like a great team. I haven't heard anything that they are sitting some people yet, so I think it's going to be a get up 30-0 like they have been in the recent weeks, then start sitting people in the third and fourth quarter. Especially without Ryan Fitzpatrick testing positive, I don't see it from Tua yet, and neither have the Dolphins, obviously, from sitting him a couple of times. So I'm going with the Bills. Bills solidify the number 2 seed. Dolphins will probably fall down to the 6 or 7 seed with a couple of other teams playing. So they will be scoreboard watching as well. And now it's time for the NFC South matchup of the Atlanta Falcons at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Buccaneers are a 7-point favorite. Over-under is set at 50.5. Joey D is going with the Buccaneers in this one, and so am I. They're going to win this game. They're going to solidify the number 5 seed in the NFC, which would get them a date with the NFC East champion, and we will get to those couple of games later. I just think that this is a game that they really need to win, and they need to win like they did last week against the Lions, just absolutely dominating, building that momentum, because a couple of weeks ago, the Falcons went up big and Tom Brady had a second half comeback, and they basically played a perfect game in the second half. So if they can't run into that again, and if you're the Falcons, they're going to be coming out playing. They're going to be ready to go. Last year in Week 17, they went into overtime. Falcons got a pick six off Jameis Winston for his final pass as a Tampa Bay Buccaneer. So we're both going with the Buccaneers, and now it's time for the Baltimore Ravens at the Cincinnati Bengals. Ravens are a 13.5-point favorite. The over-under is at 44. Joe and I are both going with the Ravens for this one, and as a Ravens fan, like Al Davis said, just win, baby. We're not looking at the 13.5-point spread. We just need to win by 1 point. We're in the playoffs, and with the Dolphins losing, we will solidify the number 5 seed in the AFC with a date with the AFC South champion, and we're not going to go on about that. This is a game that we need to win, a game that we should win, and just win by 1 point. The other AFC North matchup, we have the Pittsburgh Steelers at the Cleveland Browns. Browns are a 9.5-point favorite, even though they have not been practicing at their facility the last couple of days. Over-under is 41.5, and Las Vegas really doesn't like Mason Rudolph's chance to win, even with all the Browns' positive tests and shutting down the facilities and everything. Joey D is going with the Cleveland Browns to win this game. He doesn't think that Mason Rudolph can do it. I disagree with Joe. I think that the Steelers' defense is going to come up big. We've seen Baker Mayfield struggling the last couple of weeks, so Steelers are going to win this game. They are going to try to get that number 2 seed, but with the Bills winning, they will be locked into number 3. And the Browns will really need some help to make the playoffs, going 10-6 on the season. I just think that there's so much happening right now, and the Browns just aren't that good of a team, especially with all these positive tests we saw with the Ravens. And we played the Steelers pretty close with a bunch of backups, but I just think that we are a little bit of a better team than the Cleveland Browns, so I'm going with the Steelers on this one. Also just want to be a little bit different than Joe, have a little bit of variety. And now the first game of the NFC East. I guess this is kind of like a championship game. We have the Dallas Cowboys at the New York Giants. Cowboys are a 1.5-point favorite. The over-under is at 44.5. The winner of this game is going to be watching Sunday Night Football pretty hard, because if the football team loses, whoever wins this game wins the division. Joey D and I both believe that that team is the Dallas Cowboys. I just think that the offense has kind of been clicking in the last couple of weeks with Andy Dalton at the helm. And I don't know if the Giants have that firepower yet. Daniel Jones, I don't think he's healthy enough right now. He's definitely still not 100%. The Giants' defense is good, so I wouldn't be surprised if the Giants pulled this off. But I just can't trust the Giants' offense, even though this Cowboys' defense is bad. Like, it's so bad. But, Daniel Jones not at 100%. This could be an ugly game, and the Cowboys' offense is clicking at the right time. Plus, I know Joe's probably picking the Cowboys. That way they get pick number 20 and winning the division, and not pick number 9 or 10 and just restocking some talent on that roster. Another throwaway game starting off the 4 o'clock slate. We got the Los Angeles Chargers, 3.5-point road favorite at the Kansas City Chiefs. Chiefs are 14-1, already locked up the number 1 seed in the AFC. The over-under's 43.5, by the way. They're sitting everybody, so that's why the Chargers are a favorite. And Joey D and I both think that the Chargers are going to win. I think this is a good, like I was saying with the Lions, this is a good Week 17 win, even though you're playing the Chiefs backups. For a young quarterback like Justin Herbert to go out there, sling the ball around, have some fun, and sadly probably keep Anthony Lynn's job. So hopefully some Chargers fans might want the Chiefs to win this one. But Joey D and I just both think that Offensive Rookie of the Year, Justin Herbert, is going to be slinging around, like I said, having some fun. They got nothing to lose, and neither do the Chiefs. Hopefully this is a really fun game. Hopefully the over hits. It's a little bit low, so I'm excited to watch this game a little bit. And now moving on to the other NFC South matchup, the New Orleans Saints without Alvin Kamara still are a 6-point favorite at the Carolina Panthers. Over-under is at 46.5, and the Saints could potentially still be the number 1 seed. They need a couple of teams to lose here in this 4 o'clock slate, but it looks like that they will be the number 2 or number 3 seed, depending on if they win or lose, and if the Seahawks and Packers win or lose as well. Joey D thinks that the Saints are going to win this game. I'm going with the Panthers in this one. We saw last week, obviously, Alvin Kamara was a big part of that offense. And I just like this young Panthers defense and this young secondary to really take advantage of a banged up Drew Brees and a banged up wide receivers core. And I think that, Teddy Bridgewater has a little bit up his sleeve to score some points for the Panthers. So I like the Panthers in this one. Saints will be just fine if they get Kamara back for the playoffs, which I believe they should with the protocols. They're going to be just fine. So I'm going to go with the Panthers. Joey D is going with the Saints. Now it's time for another throwaway game in the AFC West. The Las Vegas Raiders are a 3-point road favorite in the mile-high city of Denver. Over-under is at 51. Joey D and I are both going with the Raiders in this one. I think kind of like Belichick, this is a game that John Gruden doesn't lose. And I think it's a good bounce back. I mean, the Raiders got eliminated from the playoffs in kind of a heartbreaking fashion last week with a couple of penalties and going up, then going down, then going up again, and, all that stuff. So I think the Raiders finish the season strong, and the Denver Broncos are a little bit banged up. I picked them last week against the Chargers. They didn't do anything. I'm done picking the Broncos for this year, and I think that's part of the reason with my pick. So I'm going with the Raiders, and now it's time to get into some of the important 4 o'clock games. The first one we have up, we have the Green Bay Packers and the Chicago Bears, one of the great NFL rivalries and one of the historic rivalries in the NFL. Packers are a 4-point favorite on the road. The over-under is at 50.5. And in the last couple of weeks, last month or so, both of these offenses are top 5 in scoring, rushing, and all that stuff. So this could be a very fun game to watch. Could be a game with a lot of points too. Bears control their destiny, so if they win, they are in the playoffs. They can still get in with a Cardinals loss, I believe. They own the tiebreaker over them. Packers, if they win, they're the number 1 seed. Even if they lose, they're probably still the number 1 seed, but they still have something to play for. And that's why Joey D and I are both going with the Packers. The way Aaron Rodgers is playing right now, kind of like Patrick Mahomes, like we were saying in our recap, make sure you watch that. They're the 2 best quarterbacks right now on planet Earth. And we're not going to pick against Aaron Rodgers. Now, if they go up 28-0 and then they sit him, maybe the Bears come back, but I don't see that happening. Bears could still make the playoffs, so they will be also scoreboard watching that Cardinals-Rams game. But we're both going with the Packers. They're going to solidify the number 1 seed in the NFC. And the NFC will be going through Lambeau Field. Now, time for the 2 important games in the AFC South. The first one, we have the Jacksonville Jaguars at the Indianapolis Colts. Colts are a 14-point favorite. Over-under is at 49.5. The Colts need to win to make the playoffs, basically, and have either the Ravens, Browns, or Dolphins lose, which should happen. I think the Bills will beat the Dolphins, as I said earlier. And I predicted the Jaguars are going to go 1-15. They are 1-14. They won in week 1 against the Colts. But I legally have to pick against the Jaguars. We're going with the Colts in this game, and so is Joey D. Kind of like the Ravens, it's a 13.5, 14-point spread. Just win. Just win by 1 point. Especially in this time, December, January, doesn't matter how you win these games. If you win them, go ahead. So we're going with the Colts in this one. I think the running game is doing really well, and the Jaguars, we've seen in the last couple of weeks, have given up. So Jaguars are going to go 1-15. I'm going to predict that right, and this is awesome. And on the next game, the Colts could still win the division if the Titans lose. The Titans are a 7.5-point favorite on the road at the Houston Texans. The over-under is at 56. Joey D and I are both going with the Titans in this one. And last year in Week 17, same game. Titans at Texans. Titans need to win to make the playoffs. If the Titans lose this one, still a chance that they can miss the playoffs. But I believe they do have a couple of the tiebreakers, so they would need basically everybody to win. But last year, Week 17, Titans need to win at Houston. Derrick Henry, 215 rushing yards. Again, earlier this year, I believe it was Week 3 or Week 4 when they played, Derrick Henry, 215 rushing yards. So clearly the Houston Texans defense can't stop him. And the J.J. Watt postgame will probably give a little bit of motivation to the Houston Texans. Maybe they keep this close for the first half or so, but then I think Mike Vrabel is going to make the necessary adjustments at halftime to put this game away and win the division and have a date with the Baltimore Ravens. Our friends, the Tennessee Titans and Baltimore Ravens, again in the playoffs for Wild Card Weekend. So we're both going with the Titans, and now it's time for the NFC West. A couple of big matchups and one potentially number 1 seed. The Seahawks are a 7-point favorite at the San Francisco 49ers. The over-under is at 46. And the Seahawks, like I said, could be the number 1 seed if they win and a couple of other teams lose. If not, they're going to be the number 2 or number 3 seed and have a pretty good matchup in the first round, likely against one of their division opponents in the next game. Joey D and I are both picking with the Seahawks. I think this is a game that they really need to get right. I'm not sure I like this 7-point spread, to be honest, just because we've seen NFC West division games be really close no matter who is playing, but the Seahawks haven't been looking good in the last couple of weeks, and they really need to get that momentum because they're not getting that number 1 seed with the Packers winning. So they're going to have a game next week, and like I said, they're probably going to play either the Cardinals or Rams or, Bears team that's getting hot at the right moment. So they really need to win this game. They really need to let Russ cook, and like I said, 7-point spread, don't like it. But the Seahawks do need to cover. I mean, for me to really feel confident with them in the NFC playoffs, they need to win this they need to beat the 49ers pretty handily. And I think they will, but we'll see. So we both got the Seahawks. They're going to win, being the number 2 seed in the NFC. And now the important game in the NFC West, the Arizona Cardinals at the Los Angeles Rams. Cardinals are a 3-point road favorite. A lot of road favorites this week. Over-under is at 40.5. The Rams are basically in the playoffs. The Cardinals need to win or else they're done. The Bears have the tiebreaker over them, so the Cardinals do need to win. Joey D thinks that the Cardinals are going to win and make the playoffs with the Bears loss. I think the Rams are going to win this game, and yes, I know they have their backup quarterback and don't even know his name, but he's playing. Kyler Murray is banged up, but he's playing as well. But I just think this Rams defense is going to do it. Aaron Donald is going to step up. Jalen Ramsey is going to step up. And kind of like the Seahawks, the Cardinals in the last couple of weeks, their offense has been pretty struggling, and that's not a good sign when you have Kyler Murray. You have a young electric quarterback. You have Kenyon Drake and Chase Edmonds, serviceable running backs, pretty good running backs. You have one of the best wide receivers in the game, DeAndre Hopkins. You have one of the best wide receivers of all time in Larry Fitzgerald. This Cardinals offense really needs to step it up, and I think this Rams defense is going to come to play, especially since they do have their backup quarterback. That Rams defense is going to be like, yo, if we hold them to like 10 points, our offense is good enough to get 11 points, one more point than 10, even with the backup quarterback. So I'm going with the Rams in this one. So it's going to be a fun game to watch. It could be an ugly game to watch, but the Rams are going to win and make the playoffs pretty comfortably. And then the final game of the night, we have the Washington football team at the Philadelphia Eagles. And like I said in our recap, somehow, some way in this year with the NFC East being terrible, that's the only game that really matters. And somehow Sunday Night Football is still the NFC East. I felt like we had that 8-year span where it was always the Cowboys Eagles or the Giants Eagles or the Cowboys Giants to decide the division. Somehow, some way, a couple 6-10 teams still are Sunday Night Football. Joe's Philadelphia Eagles against the football team. If the football team wins, all they got to do is win. They clinch the division. The spread is football team 3.5. Over-under is at 43.5. I would have loved to hear Joe's takes on this game, but we're both going with the football team. We think that the Washington football team will win this game and win the division. I think Joe is thinking more of, well, if the Eagles lose and a couple of these teams win, we'll get the 3rd pick or 4th pick. And he'll probably go on about how this team just isn't like that good. But I think the big thing is, like the Rams game, this football team's defense is going to eat up Jalen Hurts and that banged up offensive line. It's just not a good matchup. And we saw in week 1, even when the Eagles were relatively healthy then, relatively is a relative term. But the football team came out victorious with Dwayne Haskins at quarterback. Now Taylor Heineke is the quarterback, so I think the football team's going to win. I think it's going to be that defensive game. Could be like their game against the 49ers a couple of weeks ago where they don't score an offensive touchdown, but they get a pick six, they get a couple of good field positions, and they will win this game pretty easily and win the division. And guys, that's going to do it again for this week's Flea Flicker. It was great picking all these games this year. I will definitely go back and look at all of our records before our recap in the middle of next week to see what our overall records were and see how we did. And excited for the playoffs next week as well. We will be picking those games. And like I said, we will be contacting our guest for a couple of ideas that I have. So stay tuned. Make sure you like this video, you subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell to be notified when our videos are released. Let's enjoy week 17 of the football season, everybody, of the NFL season. We're finally here. Sadly, we're here. I mean, it's been a quick season. a long season at the same time. So enjoy week 17. We will see you in the middle of next week for our recap, and we will see you next weekend for our playoff picks. We are here, baby. Go Ravens. Have a great day.